the pale of that holy thing, justice, by what right does one form of man despise another? By what right should the sword of Washington disown the pike of Camille Desmoulins? Leonidas against the stranger, Timoleon against the tyrant, which is greater? The one is the defender, the other the liberator. Shall we brand every appeal to arms within a city limits without taking the object into a consideration? Then note the infamy of Brutus, Marcel, Arnold von Blankenheim, calling the hedgerow war, war of the streets. Why not? That was the war of Ambiorix, of Artevelde, of Marny, of Pelagius. But Ambiorix fought against Rome, Artevelde against France, Marny against Spain, Pelagius against the Moors, all against the foreigner. Well, the monarchy is a foreigner, oppression is a stranger, the right divine is a stranger, despotism violates the moral frontier, and invasion violates geographical frontier. Driving out the tyrant or driving out the English, in both cases regaining possession of one's own territory. There comes an hour when protestation no longer suffices. After philosophy, action is required. Live force finishes what the idea has sketched out. Prometheus chained begins. Aristotelian begins. The encyclopedia enlightens souls. The 10th of August electrifies them. After Aeschylus, Thrasybulus. After Diderot, Danton. Multitudes have a tendency to accept the master. Their mass bears witness to apathy. A crowd is easily led as a whole to obedience. Men must be stirred up, pushed on, treated roughly by the very benefit of their deliverance. Their eyes must be wounded by the true. Light must be hurled at them in terrible handfuls. They must be a little thunderstruck themselves at their own well-being. This dazzling awakens them. Hence the necessity of tocsins in wars. Great combatants must rise, must enlighten nations with audacity, and shake up that sad humanity which is covered with gloom by the right divine, Caesarean glory, force, fanaticism, irresponsible power, and absolute majesty. A rabble stupidly occupied in the contemplation, in their twilight splendor, of these sombre triumphs of the night. Down with the tyrant! Of whom are you speaking? Do you call Louis Philippe the tyrant? No, no more than Louis XVI. Both of them are what history is in the habit of calling good kings. But principles are not to be parcelled out. The logic of the true is rectilinear. The peculiarity of truth is that it lacks complacence. No concessions. Then all encroachments on man should be repressed. There is a divine right in Louis XVI. There is because of Bourbon in Louis Philippe. Both represent in a certain measure the confiscation of right. And in order to clear away universal insurrection, they must be combated. It must be done, France being always the one to begin. When the master falls in France, he falls everywhere. In short, what cause is more just, and consequently what war is greater, than that which reestablishes social truth, restores throne to liberty, restores the people to the people, restores sovereignty to man, replaces the purple on the head of France, restores equity and reason in their plenitude, suppresses every germ of antagonism by restoring each one to himself, annihilates the obstacle which royalty presents to the whole immense universal concord, and places the human race once more on a level with the right. These wars build up peace, an enormous fortress of prejudices, privileges, superstitions, lies, exactions, abuses, violences, iniquities, and darkness still stand erect in this world with its towers of hatred. It must be cast down. This monstrous mass must be made to crumble. To conquer at Austerlitz is grand. To take the Bastille is immense. There is no one who has not noticed it in his own case, the soul, and therein lies the marvel of its unity complicated with ubiquity, has a strange aptitude for reasoning almost coldly in the most violent extremities, and it often happens that heart-broken passion and profound despair in the very agony of their blackest monologues treat subjects and discuss theses. Logic is mingled with convulsion, and the thread of syllogism floats, without breaking, in the mournful storm of thought. This was the situation of Marius' mind. As he meditated thus, dejected but resolute, hesitating in every direction, and in short, shuddering at what he was about to do, his glance strayed to the interior of the barricade. The insurgents were there, conversing in a low voice, without moving, and there was perceptible that quasi-silence which marks the last stage of expectation. Overhead, at the small window in the third story, Marius descried a sort of spectator who appeared to him to be singularly attentive. This was the porter who had been killed by Le Cabuc. Below, by the lights of the torch which was thrust between the paving stones, this head could be vaguely distinguished. Nothing could be stranger in that sombre and uncertain gleam than that vivid, motionless, astonished face, with its bristling hair, its eyes fixed and staring, and its yawning mouth bent over the street in an attitude of curiosity. One would have said that the man who was dead was surveying those who were about to die. A long trail of blood which had flowed from that head descended in reddish threads from the window to the height of the first floor, where it stopped. End of Book 13, Chapter 3.